keeps getting worse every time I look.
Yeah, that's for sure. It definitely does not feel like spring.
Oh my
So
God, yeah, it's
It's
snowing
literally
so
a
much right
snow
now.
blizzard, the biggest flakes I've ever seen.
yeah, last week was so nice, but
A tease.
Yeah, it was. It was. It's that false sense of security.
Yeah, I wore shorts one day.
One day,
Yeah.
shorts.
It was nice.
The 60-degree day,
Yeah.
which is really funny. On 60 degrees, that means wearing shorts.
I never thought that I'd think 50 degrees was warm.
Like, I don't need a jacket today.
So that's,
Right.
that's actually nice.
Okay, tell us what your business is. What do you do?
So I am a certified functional medicine health coach. And in a nutshell, what functional medicine is just diving into the root cause of an illness and approaching it in a more holistic way. So just more of the holistic options. And when you get to a point where you're kind of feeling maybe that you've exhausted all of the other options, you're going to go down this route. And in particular, with what I do for coaching is I work with people, specifically with moms and women, to just focus on the mindset and shifting that, because wrapping your mind around approaching things in a more holistic way could be very overwhelming, especially with all the noise out there with like the healthcare world. And just like organic, not organic, like.
So what does that exactly mean?
Like not using modern medicine and using other,
or like, what does that
other
mean?
options.
Yeah. So we're not opposed to, in the functional medicine world, like modern medicine, because we believe that there's a time and a place for it.
Sure.
This is just more of a proactive approach to your health versus a reactive approach. Whereas
Okay.
like Western medicine is more of a reactive, where
Eating healthy food, exercising.
yeah,
doing
so
things
more
like
of a
that.
proactive approach of really taking control or recontrol of your health, and just understanding how the body works from the inside out. So just really supporting that. And a lot of people just have, unfortunately, a lot of illnesses now, and it's just popping up more and more. And so I think what's happening is that people are feeling like they're not being heard at their doctor's office, or they're just, kind of, again, exhausted all their other options and they don't know what to do. And so the holistic approach is what they're now exploring. And so as a coach, I'm there to help support my clients with just making sure that they're in that right mindset of wanting to make this lifestyle change, because essentially it's a lifestyle change. It's not just, I want to lose like 20 pounds because, I want to feel better. It's not a short-term thing. It's a long-term thing. So it really entails a lot of like a step-by-step process. But again, just going back to the coaching aspect, it's really starting with mindset and helping my clients just get to these steps that they need to attain, and also providing them with resources. So working with some of the like local functional medicine doctors that we have in town. There's actually a newer one too that I'm hoping to be able to collaborate with. So there's more information coming on that in the future, but just providing them with resources on what they should do, and just really being their partner along the way, because it could be very overwhelming.
So when people come to you, they're pretty lost. Like they don't know where to start with this holistic approach.
They could be lost. Like they could just have a million questions, or maybe they have a little bit of a grasp on it, but they just don't know what the next step is in terms of where they need to go. Because again, there's just so much information out there to wean out that they just don't know. And so
probably a lot of bad information and misinformation.
Yeah. I mean, I think the internet is a great place, but I also think that the internet could be just very overwhelming with information, right? And how do you know what's true and what's not?
Yeah.
And then also, how do you know what is suitable for you as an individual with what you're dealing with?
Yeah. Right.
Because you could just say, okay, well, I see all these people on social media and they could also be coaches and they're doing all these things, but does that necessarily go with what you are experiencing? Like, is it appropriate for you to pursue, or is it appropriate for you to take these, supplements or do these regimens? So,
okay. So what kinds of, I'm sure there's a lot of things, but what kinds of problems do people typically have when they come to you? So
what are they coming to you for?
Headaches,
like, what's
or
happening?
like,
yeah. So essentially, it's just more of like, again, with women and with moms. So I'll speak more to the moms. So moms, and as a mom myself, is just really, really trying to grasp the idea of like, how can I make these small changes for myself and for my family so that they can hopefully have a better like lifestyle, in terms of eating habits, in terms of just exercise, in terms of just having these options available. If you are like, you're not feeling well, if you have a stomach ache, what can we use to help you in a more natural way? And so again, with moms, it's catering to them and creating a plan to where it's like, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to make changes with, say, food swaps, right? Because kids want the fruit snacks. I just like to use fruit snacks as an example. So like there's the Welch's fruit snacks, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There are much better options to give your kids. And so I will try to help you as a client to give you what those options are, to start making these swaps, because there's just so much to it, right? Like there's a lot of just toxic chemicals as well that you could have in your home that you're just not aware of.
There's literally a shelf in our house with Welch's fruit snacks.
I'm like, oh no.
So what should I be replacing that with?
So they have
Go hide the fruit snacks.
Yeah. So it's not to put down like
What am I doing wrong?
Yeah. No, it's not. And that's the whole thing. It's like, I was in that spot too, right? Where it was just like my husband and I we just didn't know. We didn't know, almost 10 years ago. And as we started to dive into the more holistic world and just understanding more of how our food system has changed too.
Yeah.
And it's not to be scared. And it's honestly like not to scare people, because we shouldn't be afraid of food. It's just being aware of what you're buying, what ingredients are in foods, and essentially what does that do internally to you over time.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that it's just taking like the little chunks and making those changes for yourself and for your family. It doesn't have to be all in one, like just one swoop. Like you have to throw everything away that's in your kitchen, everything that's in your, like pantry and your refrigerator. That's not what we want to do. Especially for myself. Like I don't want people to feel that way, because that's not it. And you're not doing anything wrong. It's just, you don't know what you don't know until you ask the questions and you learn. I mean, that was the same position we were in. We were just like, oh my goodness, what have we been doing with our kids? Like, why were we feeding them this stuff? That's so bad. And instead of dwelling on what we should have done, what do we do now?
Change it.
Exactly. How do we just change it?
Yeah.
And it's all about the education piece of it, like just understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And really, again, it goes back to the mindset of like, just wrap your mind around, this is a whole lifestyle change and I have to do this in steps. I mean, we can't change overnight. Like it's not going to happen that way.
So how long have you been doing this coaching? Was there like a moment that you just like a switch flipped and you were like, I need to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was actually working in the healthcare field for about 15 years, non-patient facing. So it was more on the administrative side, but I was exposed to just a lot of information involved in like meetings and conferences where you get to see a different perspective on the healthcare world. And it's not to say that I'm against traditional Western medicine. And I think that the technologies that have come forth with just the advancement in itself, I think it's great, because there's definitely, again, a time and a place for that. Like I always say to people, if you get into a car accident, you're not going to go home, right? And like
drink some tea
and, run a bath with Epsom salt and put on your diffuser and essential oils. Like that's not going to help you, because if you are like say internally bleeding because the car accident was that severe, that's not going to help you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So realistically, you're going to go to a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But those instances are pretty rare, I'd like to say. And so that's more of a reactive approach. And so I'm thinking, well, how can we, right, do more of a proactive approach and take control of our own health? Because we've all been to the doctor's office to where, I mean, for me personally, like it was just, you feel like a number where
you do. I hate going to the doctors.
Yeah. It's
I absolutely hate it.
It's almost like 15 minutes on the clock. They're like, okay.
And you get nothing out of
Where
it.
it's like, I get it, because they do have a lot of people that come in, but at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that you're still feeling that way.
Yes. So from my perspective, and even from my husband's perspective, like we just felt that you're just kind of a number. You're kind of just, there, and, they're checking off the boxes, and, you're not necessarily being heard, and the problem isn't being addressed. It's just more of a Band-Aid on an open wound.
Mm-hmm.
And that open wound is still going to be there. It's still bleeding. It's just, they're just putting this tiny Band-Aid on. Yeah. And it's so hard because I, from my experience, the reason that I dove into the functional medicine world even more so was after COVID. And so just kind of seeing from the hospital perspective how things were managed, were handled, patients were being treated, and just the reality is that the hospital setting is about making money. And I was at conferences where that was just addressed.
Interesting.
It was about,
I believe that 100%.
How much money can the hospital bring in?
Yeah.
Cancer centers bring in a tremendous amount of revenue for a hospital. Oncologists bring so much money in. And so if there's not sick people, there's not money being made.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just kind of ties into that cycle of the hospital, insurance companies, pharmaceutical company. It's just really sad. And looking at that, it's you have to.
That must have been really hard to be around once you realize those truths and like you were like working in it.
Yeah, it was interesting because before I had my daughter, I wasn't really in that mindset. It was just, working at a hospital. And I think you want to believe that it's, you're making a difference, even though you might not be seeing patients directly. Like I wasn't caring for them, but I was in the background. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm making a difference, right? Like I'm helping people out.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as you start to my perspective just started to change. And then I had my daughter and I'm like, okay, well, this is different. Like, this is my opportunity now to how can I help this tiny human? Like
Mm-hmm.
she's relying on me, and how do I help her? And just kind of seeing the whole entire picture where it comes to healthcare, it comes to our food system.
Mm-hmm.
So much has changed since we were kids.
Yeah.
My husband and I always talk about the example that we use is a box of Cheerios. So if you look at the ingredients of a box of Cheerios from 30, 40 years ago, it was maybe 5 ingredients. Now it's 15. It's 15 ingredients or 20 ingredients. And you're like, why?
Yeah. It's Cheerios.
Yeah. I'm like, why? What's gone wrong? And I just think it has to do with you have to preserve things a lot longer. And the shelf life has to be longer. And they're obviously having to use things to make more money, right? Spend less, but make more. Right. And so they don't really care what they're putting out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, it's just so sad to just see that big picture overall. Yeah. What's in our food, what's in our environment. And honestly, again, as a coach, I can see when people come to me and they're just I don't know, this is too much. And I can understand that, because if you're taking all these pieces, you're so everything's bad for me, right? That's typically what I get is so everything is bad. So then what do I eat? What do I do? And honestly, I would say now more options are available. If you go to Walmart, if you go to Costco, if you go to Target, I know Target has a grocery aisle too. There are the better options there. You don't have to spend a ton of money. I think that's the misconception as well, is you have to make all these changes and then you're going to have to spend all of this money to do it. And you don't. It's just taking the little bits and then seeing for yourself as a client, what changes, what am I feeling? What am I seeing? Right? What am I experiencing from the inside out? Yeah. That's essentially what we're trying to work on, right? Is from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's true. Because there's these times where, so we get HelloFresh. Mm-hmm. We get those. So it's pretty good meals. It's fresh food, vegetables, rice, fresh food.
Minimal amount of processed stuff.
To an extent, and then we'll have an off week and get a lot more fast food and things. And I very much, I feel like shit. I'm I cannot wait to go and eat just some vegetables, some rice, and something clean
a month
feeling.
ago, I was I need to go to Sam's to just buy a bag of broccoli. I just needed greens to add to a meal, because the meals didn't have a lot of greens in them, it was pastas and stuff. And it just felt just didn't feel right.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because, again, my husband and I talk about this all the time. Is we've done the same thing. I mean, I think that it's not a bad thing. We could go a month with eating clean, at home, and then there's a couple of times where you eat out because it just happens. Whether you don't have time to cook, you're on vacation. I mean, you just don't have that that option. And you feel like you're bloated.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you have a headache. And so we've talked about it where we didn't realize these things previous to making these lifestyle changes. So we think back like 10 years ago, we were eating, or maybe even like 15 years ago, we were eating like Cheetos, for example, or even as kids, like we talk about Cheetos.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, all that, like we didn't know. We just didn't know, right? We would eat Cheetos, we'd eat Doritos, like it was the thing and it was fine. And I remember we were talking and I'm like, I would feel so like sluggish after.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that was normal. Like I was like,
oh, I'm just full.
I'm just full. I'm just tired. Like maybe I just need a nap. And fast forward, 15 years later, I'm like, that's not normal. It's just all the stuff that they put in our food. And once you start to eat and you change your lifestyle and then you do occasionally tap into the stuff that's not the best for you, you do feel it.
It's noticeable.
Yeah.
It's so noticeable.
Yeah. On your skin, like.
Right? I'm like, my skin is just recovering, I think, from that 1 week.
Yeah. You can break out. Like no, absolutely. Yeah.
It's not good.
No.
So what are people how do they find you? So what are they coming to you for? Are they like having an issue or are they just like thinking about something different or like,
So with moms in particular,
okay.
Where moms are struggling is how do they make these changes for their kids and for their family, but also how do I educate them? Like, so they can understand as well. Like, so the kids know like, this isn't just like, I'm trying to feed you stuff, because it's healthy. Like, why is it healthy? Like, what does this do to your body in the long run? And so trying to empower moms to be able to have that information, right, and these resources to then not only implement that for their families, but then to teach their kids as they're getting older.
Yeah.
So my daughter will be 9 and my son is 6. And so what we've been teaching them is, these are the things that you can have. So an example is at school, like, if somebody brings in cupcakes, I'm not going to say, no, like they can't have the cupcakes because it's got red dye 40 or, something like that. They're going to have the cupcake.
Yeah.
Because I don't want them either to feel like guilty, right? For like if they need to have a little treat. And also I don't want them to feel excluded, right? They're at school.
Right.
Like I don't want them to feel like the odd kid out.
Yeah.
But I do want them to understand that we are not buying these things. And mommy makes, homemade cookies with better ingredients that can taste the same or maybe better. And it's not going to give you like a tummy ache. It's not going to cause these things. And it doesn't have all these chemicals in it. And so that's what I'm trying to help my clients with, is just understanding that it's all these little changes that you can make that you will feel empowered as a mom.
Yeah.
Like I feel empowered now, and there's so much more for me to learn. But I do feel empowered as a mom to help my kids and even my husband, right? To just be able to understand like, this is just better for you. It doesn't have to taste gross. It could still taste delicious, and you could make it at home. But if we're out somewhere or if you're at a birthday party and you want to have a slice of cake or a cupcake, it's okay.
Just go for it.
Like, in moderation.
Go for it.
Exactly. It's okay. Like I'm not going to be upset. I'm not going to shame you.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to create that negative perspective for them. And that's what I want to help my clients as well understand. It's like, you don't have to feel ashamed. Like if you go to McDonald's, right, tomorrow and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible person. I'm a terrible mom. No, you're not. Like that's not. And I think that's one of the struggles as a society, in my observation, that we have to maybe it's the education piece, right? To get past is, oh, well, that's weird. You're not drinking a soda. That's weird. You're not eating the French fries. I don't know. Something to that. As an adult, my husband and I could tell you the same thing, like with, certain people that are close to us, like they will, be like, well, why do you do that? Why don't you just want to eat that? Like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to do this. And it's like, well, for us, it's our lifestyle. And you just said it, like you hit the nail on the head. It's a lifestyle thing. Like it's a change that you choose to make. And again, going back to the coaching, that's part of what I want to do with my clients. And specifically right now, it's women and moms, is to empower them so that they do feel confident and like, no, we don't eat this, or we're not doing this. And that's okay. Yeah. Because it's not like you're not following what everybody else is doing. Yeah. And it could be the like society, like peer pressure, right? Also, I mean, even with my kids, it's funny because like we'll go to a restaurant and the waitress will say like, what would you like to drink? We've got soda, we've got 7-Up, we've got Sprite, we've got orange juice. My kids are like water. Because they just don't.
What good kids?
They just don't drink soda. They don't drink orange juice. I mean, it's just not.
That's great.
They don't like it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that if you give your kids those options that you're a bad mom or you're a bad parent. It's just, again,
understanding that there's side effects.
Yes. And maybe you do it in moderation, and that's okay too. Like you have to do what works best for your family at the end of the day. And you also just have to like understand that it is a step-by-step, again, lifestyle change that is working from the inside out. And to teach your kids that, it has to be almost dumbed down depending on their age, right? Because they just don't have that mental capacity to fully understand what we're trying to understand as adults.
No, that makes sense. Yeah. Just all the food, like all the things going into our food these days. It's just so crazy. And I know, I think it was this last summer, I was on TikTok and I went through like a total spiral of like all these things. I went down the rabbit hole of a couple of things. I can't remember the other one, but the one was aspartame in the drinks. Yes. And so once I started looking into that, I was like, I can't drink my favorite drinks anymore. And I haven't been drinking them. I stopped.
Yeah,
mostly.
You have, mostly.
You know, but it's like just realizing the why. And it's like scary because it's like cancer causing things and like bad things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's another great point is like, what is your why?
Yeah.
And that is something that I want my clients to help. I want to help them work through is really understand like, what's your why for doing this? Is it, because if it's something because it's maybe trendy or you think that it's the right thing to do, it's probably not going to be sustainable, right? It's got to be like, truly, like, what is your why? Like, what is your purpose?
Clicks in your head of like,
yes,
because I can't do that.
Because you'll have to come back to that very often because there's going to be plenty of times where you're like, oh, I just can't do this anymore. Or I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to worry about it because everything is bad, right? You can go into that mindset.
I'm like, oh, what's the point?
Exactly. So it's just really kind of tapping into what is your why?
Because it's
and
true.
Then
a lot
keeping
of these...
that up after not just 1 week, like month after month, but not thinking of it that way. You have to think of it like day after day. Like I feel like if you
because some of them are like long-term side effects. It's not like an immediate, like I have a stomach ache now. Like it could be like bad for your health in the long run.
Yeah, and as a coach, working with a functional medicine doctor is basically like the icing on the cake.
Okay, because
a functional medicine doctor will be able to help you dive into what's the root cause of what you're experiencing, like the symptoms that you're having, if you're having like stomach issues, if you're having like eczema, if you're having just different things, like they're going to be able to help you dive into finding out what the root cause is, because they will run different types of blood work that is not just your typical blood work that you would get at the doctor, right? Once a year where they just kind of check your blood pressure, they check your cholesterol levels.
Yeah.
It's taking it one step or even 2 steps deeper into finding out like what is going on with your body.
Yeah.
Because what you need from a, maybe vitamin perspective is not what I need, even though it's maybe advertised all over. It's like everybody should take a multivitamin, everybody should take a fish oil, right? That's not necessarily for everybody.
I know you said you work a lot with moms, but is there like a general age range that you notice people come into you, like they hit a certain point in life and they're realizing that they can make these changes? Or
so I have noticed the people that are showing interest in just wanting to know more about working with me is typically between like 30 to maybe like their late 40s, even close to 50.
Yeah.
Coming out of your stupid 20 years and you're like, all right, I got to make some life changes. I feel like shit.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, like that's where I was too.
Yeah.
I mean, in my 20s, I wasn't thinking about any of this stuff.
No.
I was just, there's like all these memes on social media. It's like when you were in your 20s, you could be out till 2:00 in the morning and then sleep for 2 hours and then go to work.
Not me.
Right. And then just roll out of bed and you're like, oh, this is great. Now, no. Now I'm in bed by like 9 p.m. with like when my kids go to bed and it's
I'm
like
still tired and I wake up.
And I'm so like,
well, always tired.
So we like,
what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
What do I need to change in my diet?
No, my husband and I are like, okay, it's fun to go out, but by 8:00, I'm like, we want to be home. Like we just want to be home and like watch a movie,
100%.
sit on the couch. Like, yeah. So it's typically like that point, I think maybe too, like once you have kids, it might change your perspective too. And that's kind of what I've seen, especially again, with moms or with women, right? Maybe they're pregnant or they want to get pregnant or they already have kids. They just want to make these changes. So it kind of depends. It's kind of within that range. Yeah.
So do you have like experience as like a dietitian, or do you work with someone who's a dietitian? Like, how do you know what foods provide and things like that?
So no, I have not worked with a dietitian, and nor am I a dietitian or a nutritionist.
Okay.
So to answer your question about the food, I mean, it's just really giving people the information that lists out like, what do these things do to your body? And it's honestly not really a secret, because as you mentioned earlier with like aspartame, like there's all these things they're out there now. It's everywhere now. It's becoming easily accessible for people.
Talking about it.
Yeah. So it's just becoming more aware of, these ingredients and things that it could be hidden, because actually just recently there was something that was printed that said they're changing some of these names of ingredients that are bad because people are now becoming more knowledgeable of these things. And so they're like, let's rename it so that people don't know what it is. And most of the time people won't spend time to research like what it is, right? They're just going to be like, well,
that seems like it should be illegal. Just changing the name. Like,
I agree.
Some other people have done that. But.
I agree. It's actually illegal. It's actually banned in other countries.
It's like false marketing.
Yeah.
Like you what?
Yeah. No, it's actually banned in other countries. Some of these ingredients that are allowed in our foods.
Well, yeah. Have you traveled to Europe?
I have not, but I have.
I feel amazing. I can eat anything and everything. It's just a whole new world when I'm in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah. And
they don't have these ingredients here.
Yeah. And it's not banned here, which
that's how I feel in Mexico, except for the water. But
don't drink the water.
A week in Mexico, I feel like great. And then you come back here and have one McDonald's meal and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, it's sneaky the way that they do that, but it's also sad. And you also feel like you're right. This should be illegal. How come it's banned in other countries, but it's not banned here?
Yeah.
And it's allowed? And you're still selling it?
Everything.
In everything. Yeah. So it's just giving my clients the information about like, what does each ingredient, like, what does it mean, right? Like, what does it do? Same thing with like inflammatory oils, right? Like you've got sunflower oil, you've got canola oil. Like those are just some bad ones.
We were just talking about this the other day. I was just talking about oils.
Is extra virgin olive oil okay?
Yeah, no, it's good.
Okay,
yeah.
That's when he told me. He was like, "That's the good one."
Yeah, no, olive oil, ghee is actually another one.
That.
So that's a really good one. So the inflammatory oils like the sunflower oil, the canola oil. There's a couple of other ones too that are
vegetable oil.
Vegetable oils, yeah.
Not great.
Safflower oil. So we've read some packages before of like chips. It'll say, organic sunflower oil. And so I also think that tricks people because you're like, oh,
organic.
It's organic. So it's fine to eat. Unfortunately it's not. It's still an inflammatory oil. It's just, it's a way that they market things, that they just try to get people that way.
Right.
So with like the holistic approach, does that include like vitamins and supplements?
Yes. So I can give you recommendations. I can't actually say like you need to take ABC supplement because it'll help you. That's not in my scope of practice. That's more for a functional medicine doctor.
Right.
And so that's why it's really the icing on the cake if you are able to work with a functional medicine doctor as well as somebody like myself. To be able to line up those plans to where as a coach, I can help you based off of what the functional medicine doctor has then told you about. This is what's causing, your stomach pains, or this is what's causing your bloating, or this is what's causing, whatever the case may be. And here's the plan that you need to do. So as a coach, I'm going to help you to not only stick to that plan, but to be able to like clear out basically all of the background noise and be like, here's a plan for you. Here are the resources. Here are like my recommendations. Here are just things. And so just help you like along that journey of making these changes, right? Because it takes time. And my coaching is a minimum of 3 months. And I do that with my clients because it takes 60 to 90 days to implement a habit.
Yeah.
And so whether that's a good one or a bad one, it still takes 60 to 90 days. And so I feel like I wouldn't be doing any justice to my client or
1 week.
Exactly. Or myself as a coach,
Yeah.
right? To be like, okay, yeah, you could sign up for a couple weeks and then you'll be good. Cause that's not realistic.
Yeah.
It might be something that's a quick fix, but it won't be sustainable. And I really want to work with people that it's like, I understand this is a full on lifestyle change. And I know that this is going to be like, essentially it is years in the making. Like you don't like stop like a year later, you're like, okay, I've got it all under control. Like even as a coach, I'm still learning and I don't want to stop because I mean, if you stop, then you're not able to learn, you're not able to evolve. And I think especially when it comes to your kids, if you've got kids, like you want to teach them and you want to lead by example. So we want our kids to see us, like we're not just telling you about these things, like we're actually doing it.
Yeah.
And we're modeling it for you. So that way that hopefully there's that connection that's made as they get older.
Yeah.
It's interesting too how you said like it takes time for that mindset to kind of like really get dialed in. And back to what I was saying earlier about like when I was doing the really good nutrition, I remember going to like a fast food place and it like didn't smell good. Like it truly smelled gross and like repulsive. Where now I love it. I see McDonald's and I'm like, give it to me. But at the time when I was disciplined, I do remember like having those feelings of like just no interest whatsoever. Just none of it. And it made it easier to like do that consistently.
Yeah.
But
there's trust me, I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh no, I don't have a pizza. Like we don't do that stuff. No, absolutely. Like my daughter loves pizza. And so like, I would say the last time we had it was like a week ago, we went to buy pizza. And I know like for myself, I know how that's going to make me feel after, but I'm like, you know what? My daughter wants pizza. Like she wants to have a couple of slices. I'm going to take her and I'm going to partake with her.
Yeah. Because
I don't want it again to take away from the experience also, right? Because food is not like, it shouldn't be like a scary thing. It shouldn't be like overwhelming. You shouldn't feel guilty about it. It's just being aware, like you said, of how you're going to feel after. It's like, okay, I know I'm not going to feel good. I might have a breakout because it's, you're taking in all these like oils and stuff, but I don't want to take away from that experience of having some pizza because my daughter wants to have some and I want to partake with her. Right. Yeah. So, or my son wants to have a scoop of ice cream.
One day when she is away from you, she's just going to binge everything.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. It's like, we don't want to create that environment for our kids. And I want, my clients to understand the same thing. It's like, we don't want to create almost like a hostile environment.
Like a punishment.
Against food. Right. I want them to understand, going back to the whole thing is like of the mindset, understand like what does this do to you if you are eating this on a regular basis, right? And it's really kind of creating a more healthier relationship with not just food, just about in general like life, because we're not living in a bubble, right? There's toxins everywhere, whether you are consuming it in your food, it's in our, hair products, it's in
candles.
Our candles, it's in cleaning products.
Like
exactly.
It's just
everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. Yeah. But there are better options. And it's just understanding and really honing in on what's going to work for you and for your family.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's important. It is important. Yeah.
It's funny that we don't see more ads for stuff like talking about what you do versus like we just see so many ads on TV for medicine. That's just ads. like why are you promoting a medicine ad to me who has no
I'm not a
background
doctor.
in that?
I can't prescribe this.
Why
to
would I tell my doctor, hey, I think I should try this? Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think because the reality is like services.
Money.
Yeah. Money. Services like mine is not covered by insurance. Functional medicine doctors aren't covered by insurance. So unfortunately, people have to pay out of pocket for them. And so
does that make it hard to get clients?
It can. I mean, so I'm fairly new with my business in itself. And so I haven't yet run into people kind of giving that type of feedback just yet. But I do know that that's kind of the reality of what we're facing now with the economy and just it's expensive, right? So people are assuming like if I have to pay for coaching, if I have to pay for seeing a functional medicine, right, for my labs, then
you have to pay that all out of pocket. With
yes,
doing
exactly.
Functional medicine and like
so
all the
some of the lab work may be covered by your insurance. But other, say, treatments and things that might be recommended won't be, unfortunately, right? And I think that puts people off because they're like, well, I can't, right? I have to feed my family. So am I going to take my money away from here and like have to do this? And that's kind of the unfortunate place I think a lot of people are at right now based off of the way the economy is.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I think that more and more people are going to come to the realization because they're facing maybe certain health issues that they're going to have no other choice based off of what they've already exhausted.
Yeah.
Based off of what the insurance covers. Right. So there's going to get a point to where people might feel that way. And it's sad.
Yeah.
But I think like as a coach, I'm like, I want to help you. Right. I want you to feel like there's options, right? Like you don't have to feel like it's not possible. It's not affordable. It's again, going back to just making those little changes. An example I like to give is like, the organic grass-fed beef, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is like the ideal thing to buy, but it's also very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So just making a swap to maybe like just using the beef with like olive oil, maybe if it's not organic and you want to save a couple of dollars, right? Like let's kind of start there with those like little swaps. And then maybe as time goes on, you might essentially be able to then afford like the fancy like grass-fed, grass-finished beef and like the organic chicken breast.
Or maybe like decrease your quantity you're eating of it.
Yeah.
Of
like the
beef.
meatless Mondays.
Like,
is that still a thing?
To be able to afford that lifestyle.
For meatless Mondays.
Meatless Mondays.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that.
They're
That's
like, cut it out. They're like, just one day a week, like make it be a vegetarian meal. Just kind of like simplify it.
Yeah. And I think that there's a common misconception about, and again, it's all this noise, right? Constant, like eggs are good for you. Eggs are bad. Red meat is bad. It's good. Yeah.
Free,
there's just so much. And it's really understanding the kind of like the root of where your food is coming from, right? So red meat is not bad. It's really not bad to eat. It's just the quality of the meat that you're buying. Yeah. But now it's like you have to question everything because things are being like snuck in and you're just, you're wondering, it's like, is this actually beef or what's in my beef or what's in my chicken, what's in my eggs? Yeah.
What was that show you were just watching the other day? We were talking about it where it was like all the secrets in the industry.
Well, there's so many of them. There's like Food Inc., a bunch, but there was one I saw that it was showing just ramen. I don't eat a lot. I don't even eat that. We give it to Eve.
I think I saw
feed it to our kid.
Our
Maybe
daughter.
I should stop feeding it to
And I saw this TikTok and it was how they make it. Did you know it's not even noodles? It's like a paste. Like,
I saw that.
It's disgusting. They literally squirt it out into like noodle shape. Like it's not even anything noodle. I don't even know if it's a grain. I don't know what it is, but it's like pure shit. Like, just terrible for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I'm glad that these things are out there because people are starting to like open their eyes a little bit more to, again, like what's in our food. But also like, you don't have to completely stop eating ramen. Like there's better noodle options.
Well, as shocked as I was by it, I was
it.
impressed. I was like, it's cool they could do that.
You're like, it's gross, but it's cool.
I'm just going to turn my head the other way.
Gross.
So what are some better options then?
So actually, funny enough, at Costco, they actually have ramen noodles that are organic. Like, there's literally 2 ingredients in them. And I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but they have them at Costco. And there's like this huge pack. So you could like use the noodles. And so what we do at home is we buy those and then we buy bone broth and we just make our own soup.
There you go.
And you could throw in like vegetables in there or like chicken breast or, you could do whatever you want, right? It's just, you're making it at home.
Do you feel better after that? Like sodium wise, like you're not like a balloon?
Yeah, no. So, cause there's not soy. There's no soy in like the noodles. There's no soy in the bone broth. And there's actually even like another alternative to actually buying like soy sauce. It's amino acids. They're like can be coconut flavored, and you can put that in there to like if you wanted to do like fried rice, which I love fried rice. But I know like when I go out to eat Chinese food, like I just feel blah.
I feel like you just ate a whole stick of butter. And,
it's so greasy. It's super greasy. It tastes good, but you're like it's so greasy. Like my face comes out like it's just shiny.
All shiny.
Yeah. You can just see it.
You touch your face and I'm like, wow.
Yeah. It was good. It was a good meal, but it's
literally
like,
just oozing out of me.
It's oozing out of my pores.
It does. It does. You're like, why am I so shiny?
Okay. So I want to talk about like your actual business.
Okay.
Is this like online coaching? Do you meet up with people in person?
So I don't have an office space at the moment. So it's all virtual.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that that is convenient for most people. And again, like
that sounds convenient.
Yeah.
Speaking to like,
To have to go in somewhere.
To not have to go in, especially because everybody's working or people are just, everybody's busy.
Yeah.
I understand. And so I think virtual is kind of the way I'm going to stick right now until maybe in the future be able to have like an office space for people to come in. I just feel like they want, and I respect that, right? They want the privacy of not like, you don't want to share your business with other people. So virtual, and it's still face-to-face, right? And I think we might have gotten a little bit used to that with the whole COVID thing and just being virtual.
Well, just the convenience of it, actually. I'm like, I'd rather not go in anymore.
Because it's not like you're testing their blood pressure or anything. Like it's purely just off of
conversation.
Yeah, exactly. It's checking in with them on a weekly or bi-weekly basis and running through like, okay, what have you done in the last week? Which includes like journaling and just making sure like, what's your progress? And part of my coaching package is also being able to check in with me almost through like an instant messenger, but it's via Voxer, if you're familiar with that app. So they can message me with like questions, or if they're running into, any like problems, or they're just feeling discouraged. And so they can reach me there as well before our next check-in.
Right.
So everything is really just virtual and try to make it as convenient as possible for people.
Yeah. So because you said you worked with a functional medicine doctor.
Yeah. How does that work?
Here.
So so we're trying to make this connection that any patients that he has can be referred to me. And if I have, clients, I can refer them that are local.
Yeah.
I can then refer them over to him. And so we're still trying to figure out like what that model looks like.
Yeah.
Because he's also fairly new to the area. But he is the only actually certified functional medicine doctor, because there's other like holistic I guess businesses in the area that offer similar things, and not to discourage anybody from going there by any means, but they don't have the certification because they're not required necessarily to be certified. Whereas this doctor, he is certified, and so I think it just gives them a leg up. One of the misconceptions is that we're just not like it's just maybe not like we're actually real. And I would say maybe from a doctor's perspective, there might be the misconceptions like, are you a real doctor? Because you're like functional medicine. Like, what is that? Right.
Yeah.
What's holistic? Like, what are you going to do?
I'm sure you get a lot of skeptical people, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. There's just, I think because there's a lack of education. I think that's just the bottom line, right? It's not because they don't actually they just don't understand. People don't understand.
Even the word holistic can confuse me a little bit. I'm like, I don't know fully what that means.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think people might think it's like, oh, it's just this like hippie stuff. I mean, I'll be honest, like sometimes we get called hippies, they're like, oh, you're doing that hippie stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not really hippie. I mean, if you kind of look,
that's part of the problem is calling it that.
It's calling it that. And if you look back to like our ancestors with what they used to do with medicine before there was all of this technological advancements and things like that. And again, I will say, nothing wrong with that, because I think it's great that we have all these medical advancements. Yeah,
sure.
But if you go back to just the basics, right, they used herbs, they used things from nature, and it was natural, and they were able to take care of like common things that we deal with now, which are not treated that way anymore, right? We're just thrown like a prescription.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, well, that sounds bad, so let me just hand you a prescription. Studies that tie in, there's a direct correlation between your gut health and your brain health, because your gut is like your biggest brain. So your gut essentially like controls everything else. So if your gut health isn't in a good place, it's going to show up in very different ways.
That makes sense.
So like, take the example of like eczema, which is pretty common for a lot of people, but also the mental health perspective too. I don't think people understand that there is a direct correlation.
It affects a ton of things.
Yeah. And I don't know if people necessarily want to believe that either, because they think, oh, this is just like, this is a load of junk, right? It's just that how can your gut affect your brain health? Like it doesn't make sense. And there's actually studies that do show that there is a direct correlation. So it's really, it's fascinating. Like if you start to really get into that, you really understand that there are just so many ways that you could help, starting with your gut, to be able to take care of a lot of these issues that people are having. But again, not to say that there are other things that people are experiencing in their health that need to be treated in other ways that could be a little bit more, maybe I say aggressive, right? Just depending on what they're facing.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
So kind of back more to like literal business side of things. How have you promoted yourself since you've been open?
So this is March. Okay, so last month I did the Falls Market over at the Mountain America Center.
Okay.
With a booth, and I did another booth just recently in Rexburg, and I'm going to be doing a couple more booths just locally to be able to just get the word out.
Okay.
And then social media. I'm going to really hone in on my social media to just be able to reach more people, not just locally, but just have a larger reach.
I feel like you have a lot of information you could share.
With a large reach, because you can help people not just here.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that's great for you.
Yeah. So that's kind of my goal. I mean, I want to obviously focus on our community as well. Because I feel like, again, there's just a lack of information out there. And I feel like once people kind of understand like what functional medicine is and what I can help with as a coach, I think that's just going to open up more people's minds to be like, oh, okay, like I get it. And maybe I do need this, or maybe I don't. But just promoting like in that way, that's kind of the marketing that I've taken. So social media, and then a lot of these booths coming up in the next couple months.
Have you seen some success from the booths? Are you getting a lot of interactions?
So at the events, the first event was a little bit slower, because I think the common misconception that I ran into was, oh, you're a coach, so do you help with weight loss? And so I'm like, no, it's not. That's not what I do.
Were they mainly inquiring about weight loss?
Yeah, a lot of people stopped in. And so what I learned from that essential, like the first time I did a booth was I need to provide a pamphlet with information of like, what is functional medicine, and like, how do I come in to this whole, like this perspective of functional medicine. And so with the second booth that I just had, it actually really helped more, because people like pick up a brochure and they're like, oh, especially moms, like a lot of moms coming, like walking through with their babies or pregnant, and they're just like, oh, they're like, we need somebody like you. Like the connection they were able to make that connection in their mind, reading the brochure and like putting that together and then asking questions. And so that helped.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that by providing more like information at the booths and even through social media, like people will be able to make that connection. And if they truly do need my help, they can reach out.
Yeah. You have like a total niche of like there's like TikToks, tons of TikToks about all these type of things.
Yeah.
You can hop right in there.
Yeah.
What are some of the common problems that you see people coming in with? Is it mainly starting with gut issues, or?
So the biggest thing, and there's been so many studies recently that have come out that gut health and leaky gut syndrome, actually. So if you look that up, I
feel like I've heard leaky
heard
gut
that term
before.
Yeah. So that is like the biggest thing that most people are experiencing, right? From
what is that?
Yeah, what is that? What is that?
So when your gut, like all your microbiomes, and like, you know how you take I don't know if you guys take a probiotic, for example, right? There's all like the good bacteria that your stomach's supposed to have. You're supposed to have some bad, but some good. And so just kind of looking at it that way, like those aren't balanced out for most people. And so what's happening is, when they call it leaky gut, is because you're then experiencing something on the outside, right? So inside, your gut's not working well. So then now you're experiencing like headaches, migraines, eczema. So there could be just an array of different things that you're experiencing, but it's never targeted to your gut, right? I've never heard a doctor say, so let's find out a little bit more about your gut. Like, let's do some testing, right? Let's figure out what's going on. I've not experienced that before. Yeah.
Never.
Until I started going myself to a functional medicine doctor, like I didn't understand these things, right? And then obviously when I got my certification and dove into that, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So the gut thing is huge. It's interesting. So the gut thing is huge. The next thing I would say is of course the mindset. Like that's the biggest thing, is just really helping people to like wrap their mind around the world of like doing things in a more holistic way.
Okay.
Because again, I think the common misconception is it's just essential oils, diffusers, just like, you know, hippie stuff like that. And I mean, while we do, like, we personally use it, and we may recommend that, but
you're not wrong.
You're not wrong to say that essential oils aren't part of it, but there's just so much more. There's so much more with like getting yourself fixed in a way, like from the inside out, and that's
in a healthy way.
And it could be also from a mental perspective, like. Journaling is huge. I mean, that's one thing that I've had on my list to be like, I need to start journaling, because when you're writing things out, it's a release that your brain is doing, but also like physically, because if you're holding on to stuff and something inside, whatever that is, it doesn't have to be something like significant. It could just be something that's bothering you. If you start journaling it, you almost feel like, that's a little therapeutic.
Like you see it a little differently too.
Yeah, it's part of the therapy. And so that's kind of part of what I have my clients do is like, let's just journal. Like, what is this experience feeling like for you? Because you're going to run into points where you're like, I'm frustrated, I'm going to give up. Or maybe, hey, this has been a great day. Like, I want to talk about it, right? Or let me just write it out. So there's just things like that people I think are struggling with, which seems so simple to do. You're like, oh, I can journal for 5 minutes. I can do that. Yeah. But really we forget. And we just can't. Yeah. Like we don't. And exercise too, like movement. Like you don't have to spend an hour at the gym. You could literally do 15 minutes of, walking.
Yeah. I was going to say walk somewhere instead of driving.
Yeah. Go walking. Or if you've got some gym equipment at home, like do 15 minutes. I mean, it doesn't have to be like crazy. The other thing that is big that we personally do is we do the sauna. So we've got our own little like individual sauna that has red light therapy. Okay. So red light therapy is another just alternative in the functional medicine world to help you with your healing.
I've been hearing a lot about red light therapy lately.
It's really good. It's really good. It's a little bit of an investment for people to make. And so I'd say like with people that are starting, it's probably not something that I would recommend off the bat just because it's a big investment to make. But what I've seen based off of where we were from and here is just there's a big gap with the information. And I just think that people are stuck in their ways of like, I don't need help. Like I'm at this stage in my life. Yeah. I've got it. Like I've been fine this whole time. And they may like,
or that's just hippie stuff.
Stuff. Yeah. That's like trendy. It's
easier to say that than to truly like face the facts.
Yeah. And that's like trendy or that's hippie or I don't need to change. Like there's nothing wrong with me. My doctor said I'm fine. But the reality is it's like everybody is facing something, right? It may not be as severe as say someone having cancer, right? But you're probably dealing with something that has been labeled as normal or common, like high blood pressure, cholesterol. I remember growing up, like my grandparents had that. And it
was always talked about on every commercial, the Cheerios commercials. Yeah.
For cholesterol. Lower your cholesterol. Have some Cheerios. Yeah. And so I thought, growing up, I'm like, oh, this is normal. This is what's going to happen when I get older. Like I'm just going to deal with high blood pressure and cholesterol. And so I always thought before diving into this world was like, I guess I'm gonna have to deal with it. I guess getting old is like, these problems. And I mean, what can I do?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah. And then you realize that it's not like, it's just, we've been trained to think that these things are just something that we have to live with. Yeah. Or feeling uncomfortable is something that you just have to be okay with. And it's not. Like, it's not okay. And I think for me, personally, when I changed, like when I started to see these changes in myself and feel them, I was like, this is weird. Because for so many years, you just think it's okay to feel bloated after meals and like sluggish or just have, this feeling of being uncomfortable or whatever the case may be. I was like, oh, this is just normal, I guess. Yeah. And then like I mentioned earlier, I'm like, then you fast forward and you make these changes and you learn and you're like, oh, it doesn't have to feel that way. Like I don't have to feel, tired and uncomfortable all the time. That's not to say you don't have bad days. Yeah. I mean, we're human, right? Like we're going to have bad days. Sure. But for the most part, like, you're more in tune with your body and what your body needs when you get to a certain point of really like honing in on, again, working from the inside out.
Yeah.
Or if
And,
like
like, you
something
feel it, so
is
you-
up
yeah.
and weird, like, you know exactly why. You're
Yeah.
like, it's because I ate that or I
Uh-huh.
did that. It's not like
Yep.
it could have been breakfast, lunch, or dinner that I ate today. Like something in there.
Yeah. And you know what to do.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I
Uh-huh.
know that I need to do X, Y, Z, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe next time I just won't eat that. Or
Mhm.
what, you know, you just make that choice, but you are, again, you're more honed in into your like, you're tapped into your inner self,
Yeah.
really. I mean,
Mhm.
again, that sounds hippie, but it's true. Like you're really tapped into what your body needs. Like you understand it and you're actually listening to it. Whereas I felt like 15 years ago, it's like, you're not really listening. You don't know what to do.
Not at all.
Right.
Mhm.
You're just like, I don't know.
You're just thriving.
You're just thriving. You're just surviving.
Let's go eat some Cheerios.
Yeah.
It's good.
Cheetos.
Cheetos and Doritos
Right
and
though.
Cheerios and aspartame.
So if people are curious about taking the holistic approach, can they come to you? Or
So I offer a free 30 to 45 minute consultation call, which is virtual.
Oh, wow.
So a virtual Zoom.
okay.
And on the call is just basically like, I want to know from you, like what you're looking for, like what you're looking to achieve.
Mhm.
And also like if you're dealing with something specific, right, in terms of your health.
Okay.
And then I would expect questions as well about like, what can I do as a coach to help you? And at that point, then we'll determine, it's like, are we going to be a good fit to work with each other? Because I will, you know, I'll make that decision as well too. Cause I think you'll get people that again, are just wanting to look for a quick fix.
Mm.
And that's not, I'm not discriminating by any means, but I just don't feel like that's aligned with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like I want somebody that says, I need to make this, like, this is going to be hard
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to suck, but I want to make this change for my life.
Yeah.
And to understand like, what's your why? Like, why do you want to do this? Right. And if it's something like, again, short term, like, oh, well, I just need to lose some weight, or I just need to address this issue now and kind of deal with it and get it over with, then maybe we're not going to be necessarily a good fit.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's,
Go get is it Ozempic?
oh,
Go get Ozempic for fast weight loss.
For some fast weight loss.
And then come back to me for some mental health once you realize that wasn't the solution.
yeah. So, I mean, I think it's that on that call is just to determine where you are at as a client, potential client, and
Yeah.
like what headspace you're in. And then again, like I said, I would expect that you question me, and I'm going to be honest about what services I provide,
Yeah.
and honestly, like what I'm looking for in a client, because I think it needs to go both ways, right?
It's
We need
true.
to make sure that we're on
Yeah.
the same page.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So where can people find you?
So social media, Instagram, which is Welkin Wellness is my Instagram handle,
Okay.
or it's Welkin_wellness.
Okay.
Okay.
And then my website, which is Welkin Wellness Coaching.
Okay.
So you could book the consultation call through my website.
Mhm.
And then there's a bunch of information on there as well, just a little bit more about me and just services that I offer, and a little bit more about what functional medicine is. So
Cool. All right. Well,
You
go
know where
check
to
her
go.
out. She just said
Yeah.
it. Go check her out.
If your head hurts, your stomach hurts, anything hurts, just give her a call.
But if you're in a car accident, go to the doctor.
Right, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Mhm. Yep.
yeah, please don't call me.
Don't call her.
Yeah. There's a true emergency. Please go to the emergency room.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. We flew through an hour. I feel like we
Yeah.
scratched the surface.
I know. That
There's
was
so
so
much to
fun.
talk about in this topic.
Yep.
Did we even
Is
talk about your business?
Basically.
I'll have to come back.
Yeah, we'll have to come back for part 2.
Okay.
Make sure and subscribe to the podcast. If you made it this far, please and thank you. I think that's all we got.
Yeah, that's everything.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.